G'day guys, I'm finally here. It's been, what are we on? Three days. 3 days since our elimination final win against the Sydney Swans, a 6-point win in front of 92,000. What a night. What a night. And it's taken me, look, hasn't been deliberate not to get on and do a review of this game, but I'm sort of glad I've spent a little bit of time just reflecting on it. And there's not a lot of time to reflect because you blink and we've got another game on Friday against the D's, which I will do a preview for that on Wednesday. But I don't know, just trying to distinguish between the enormity of the night and the occasion, and I'm talking about Friday night, and then distinguishing that from our actual performance in the game itself. The elimination final against the Swans is probably the most difficult thing I've been coming to terms with since Friday night. And what I mean by that, just being caught up in the emotion of the evening, the way the game, I suppose, ended, the hysteria, the hype now associated to all that, and much deserved, mind you. It can sometimes cloud one's judgment when assessing how we actually played and how we actually performed. And I don't want to take this, I'm not taking this win for granted at all, but I felt like a lot of the night sitting watching this game at the G, felt a lot of time going, geez, we're struggling a bit here. And maybe that's just finals football. It probably is. And I thought we handled the occasion really well, but the actual execution of the game, it was a real battle. And I did feel like, I felt for large parts of that game, I was saying, fuck, we haven't played that well here. And there was a lot of things we weren't doing well. But that probably makes the win a hell of a lot sweeter, if I'm perfectly honest. It was a game of big momentum shifts and costly errors at crucial moments on our behalf. I remember those clearly, and probably on theirs as well. You know, a couple of really poor kickouts from full back and turnovers in our back half, which resulted in goals. And, you know, even the Owies running into an open goal. And where I was sitting at the ground, I actually thought it looked like from where I was sitting right up the other end that he was holding the ball up to the crowd, which would, I thought, what the fuck are you doing, mate? But, you know, Harry's misses, two really, really big misses at big times, particularly the second one. And just little bits and pieces here and there, but I don't know, when you lead a game for all of the 117 minutes and 54 seconds, that's how much it was of the match, that result in the end by 6 points, although we probably got lucky on a couple of occasions, it does seem quite just. And I thought Sydney were really good, which was, I think, probably the reason why it looked like we struggled at times, because they really did take it up to us. And it was for the most part, it was a cracking game of football, particularly that third quarter. Obviously, we started like a house on fire, and it was the perfect start, really. But you just knew that it wasn't going to pan out that way, that we were just going to have the game on our own terms, although it felt a little bit like probably the grand final last year for the Cats when they just exploded out of the blocks and Sydney were just, they just couldn't handle the heat. But, yeah, I thought that start was perfect for us, but the game changed really quickly in that first quarter. I thought we were a little bit lucky to go into quarter time with a 9-point lead. I'm not quite sure if you felt that way, whether you were at the ground itself or watching it on the TV. It felt like to me that Sydney, after we kicked the first two goals, those goals came with absolute energy and enthusiasm on our behalf, but they settled really well and had us on the back foot and defending. And I just thought it was a really important goal to Matthew Cottrell against the flow in that first quarter, and they did kick poorly. That was really important in that first quarter. It just gave us a little bit of breathing space. And the second term for both teams this year have been extraordinary. Sydney are a really good second quarter team, but that's been clearly our best quarter for the year. And we were the ones that came out in that second quarter and dictated the play. I was talking to my brother at the ground, and we were thinking that the City end, where Sydney kicked in the first quarter, that may have been where the wind was blown, because it felt like that was the scoring end. It really did, and that was our best quarter of football from a holistic point of view. We dominated so many areas of the ground, and although 29 points felt like a big lead, I reckon it could have been more. I thought our defence in that first half was superb. But I don't think we got bang for buck from our forwards in that first half. We got a lot of chance-type goals. Was our delivery that good? Were we structuring up well? Or were Sydney's defenders just really dour and really making it hard for us? But I just felt like it was a bit like pulling teeth in that first half, just trying to get some fluency in our front half. Felt relatively comfortable at half time, but did not expect Sydney to come out the way they did at the start of that third quarter. And they were, as I said before, they were really impressive. And from a spectator point of view, if you were a neutral, that was a great quarter of football. Their big started to get on top. Thought McDonald in that third quarter. Armity didn't get a lot of the ball, but was a bit of a handful at times. And McLean, who I don't know a lot about, Hayden McLean, he had a night out. Whether that was up forward or whether it was around the ground with his marking. He's a really impressive player, and they were all dangerous in that third quarter, and they started to get on top in the middle. It felt like it was coming from Hickey, and it felt like just being at the ground and not having access to the TV or the commentary. Just felt like when Pitnet was in there, we were a little bit stronger at the contest, and when TDK went in there, we lost a little bit of ascendancy. I'm not quite sure if that's what it looked like from the TV, but it certainly felt like that from the ground. And they got on top and they scored in a hurry. And that response by us in the third quarter, where we kicked 3 unanswered goals in that little patch, Martin, Chera, then Cripps, was for me arguably the defining moment in that game. It was always going to be bloody difficult for Sydney, and I know they got close in the end to probably win that game, chasing, because it's almost like they were chasing leads from the second quarter, and then chasing that after dominating the early part of that third quarter, for us then to respond in the way we did. And that was a terrific patch of football by us. And I know they hit back late with a couple of goals to bring it within 15 points at three-quarter time, but it just felt like we just did a little bit of damage there. It was a really important part of the game. The last quarter was just so tense. Some big courageous moments. We got that goal to Akers with an open paddock. And that just gave us a little bit of breathing space. Thought Saad was enormous with his intercepting in that last quarter, just so safe. And then Martin a couple of times, there's some late grabs. Akers was just everywhere in that last quarter with his run. And after hardly being involved at all in the first 3 quarters, I thought Charlie's last quarter was significant. His ability to mark the ball down the line. Just, with Harry going off, we needed someone to step up with some marking to get, with some get outs down the line, and it was Charlie who really stood up with that. Thought he was excellent in that last quarter. I must say, we actually looked out on our feet in that last term, and they lifted after half time, which was completely different to how they have tracked throughout the whole season. Sydney, they've been a really poor second half team, but it was them who were running over the top of us. I don't know if that's a concern moving forward, but there was a lack of real run. And I know Voss mentioned in his press conference that he felt there was a lot of energy in this game. But I felt like the energy, as the game progressed, we were void of it. And we weren't getting a lot of spark and a lot of run. It was coming down to just pure contest and pure sort of heart and soul sort of type stuff. And I suppose that's what finals are about. So I don't know. I don't know how to read this one other than saying maybe that I wanted to get through to the second week of the finals, and I think to get this one out of the way was really good. And to win in that manner, where you can look at it at least and go, shit, there's still a little bit we can improve here. Maybe not such a bad thing, but it's going to be a tough ask against Melbourne this Friday night, and I will preview that later on in the week. Stats, how much of these do you read into? They look pretty even. I mean, they had more scoring shots, and it felt like they just had some chances that they left out there, and we got a little bit lucky again with the touched on the line, although they were touched. But they could have quite easily been goals, and it may have been a different story if they were goals, but that is luck. But it just feels like luck has somewhat been on our side in the second half of the year. We won more inside 50s, which wasn't going to be a big surprise. Sydney do cough up a lot of inside 50s. They love to absorb. Thought their defence was really good. Thought it was superb, actually. Ours was great in the first half, not so good in the second half. One contested possessions, which we thought we would do. We basically shaded them in clearances, but didn't dominate. Didn't dominate that area of the ground. Slightly in front, through the middle and around the ground, but it wasn't a big win. We were down on marks inside 50, which was, which I think's a little bit of a concern, if I'm perfectly honest, because we're not going to have that our way against Melbourne. We know that. So we're going to have to manufacture goals in different ways, which we did on Friday night. But we got sweet fuck all from our smalls, I thought, in our front half. Other than the tackling, I thought our tackling and pressure around the ball in our forward half was good, but not so much the execution from our smalls. They were hardly sided, to be perfectly honest. So the stats. Let's go to the players, guys. How did you read the game? Okay, in the comments below, how did you read it? Were you happy with the performance? Obviously, the winner final, you're going to be happy with that. But as soon as the game finished and you jumped into the car, I was starting to think, was that a great team performance? I'm not quite sure. Just quickly for the Swans, I just, some blokes, Gordon was really good. Didn't think he dominated, but a couple of goals. He's such a class act. And I always felt like we didn't have that type of player in our team. Felt like they controlled the outside game for large parts, particularly the uncontested marks. But we did set up quite well behind the ball to stop them, gaining a lot of sort of inside 50s. I thought we did defend quite well, particularly in that first half. But Gordon is a class act. Blakey just kept coming. Every time we were trying to get that ball out of our back half in the last quarter, it was Nick Blakey who was there. He's just a terrific footballer. Warner had a bit of the ball, but didn't notice him a lot throughout the night. Parker had about 10 score involvements. It felt like to me that him and Lloyd, from their experienced player point of view, were the two that really lifted for Sydney, particularly in that second half. Papley, they used him at centre bounces a lot, and then he would go forward straight away. I noticed they did that a lot in the game. Papley had started in the centre square. Then as soon as the ball was bounced, he then shooted forward. He wasn't particularly dangerous in the front half. Didn't kick a goal. Thought McCartan was great on Charlie inside forward 50, although Charlie got away from him outside 50 in that last quarter with a couple of big grabs. And I thought Hayden McLean was their best player. He's a real talent, Very, very impressed with his game on Friday night for the Swannies. For us, I will go through the players, guys, as I usually do. And it was a funny night because there wasn't necessarily any real, any real sort of standout players. And every player sort of had a moment, and that's usually the case in games. Every player will have a moment or two. But there were some real heroic type performance, and I'll get to those. But I'll start with Jesse Motlop, who was a sub, came on for Harry, thought he was average, just couldn't get into it. Is it a big ask to ask a second-year player to come on and have an impact in a final? Well, he looked all at sea, to be perfectly honest. He was running around like a chook with his head cut off, couldn't get his hands on the ball. In fact, did not have a touch in his time on the ground, so I'd be a little bit disappointed with that. I thought Chera, after quarter time, really got involved in the game. That was a great goal he kicked in that third quarter. It was a beauty. It really was. I thought it wasn't a huge game by Adam Chera, but if you look at the midfielders from both teams, I think we just edged them in that area of the ground. I thought our mids were just a little bit better and a little bit more influential, and Adam Chera was one of those players who had a reasonably good night. Fogarty with 8 tackles, leading tackler on the ground. Thought he was good, and I like that he goes into some centre bounce. I noticed him get a couple of centre clearances in that little patch we had. I think it may have been one clearance out of the middle in the third quarter. He's only had the 12 touches, didn't hit the scoreboard, but he's laid 8 tackles. Cripps, really, really quiet first half. Hardly sighted. Mills did a pretty good job on him. But I thought his second half, to come out after half-time, notice he's still wearing that patch on his ribs, and I reckon the story of that will come out once the season finishes. He's no doubt he's got some broken ribs there, but his ability to lift in that second half, ended up with 21 touches and a big goal from 45 after a crunching tackle, although there has been a little bit of controversy about that tackle. Was a big moment in the game. Thought we had him there. I thought that's where we broke their back, but they just kept coming, the Swans. Full credit to them. Little bit of a sort of mixed bag for Mitch McGovern. He's picked up the 16 disposals, took some nice sort of grabs. One late, but coughed the ball up, which resulted, I think, in a goal for the Swans early in the game. Did he ram it down? Was it McGovern who ran the ball down Gordon's throat, or was that later on in the ground? But anyway, he had some moments. Mitch McGovern, he was one that did look tired in that last quarter. De Conning, not a bad. 11 hit-outs, gave us some energy in the ruck, got his hands on the ball with 15 disposals. That's something which Pitnet doesn't do. And I thought he took some nice marks too down the line, or drifting back as well, Tom De Conning. I thought it was a reasonable performance. Thought Akers was easily in our top 3 players. His work rate was incredible. His courage was incredible. 26 touches, 570 metres gained and a goal in that last quarter. I know his ball use isn't great, but fuck, what he does to get up and down the ground and to defend and to help out the back 6 is incredible. And for him to be able to then go forward when everyone would have been gassing that last quarter and kick a vital goal, I just thought, it wouldn't have surprised me if he would have got the 3 votes of a lot of experts in that game, because I just thought he looked like the most influential player on the ground throughout. I thought Doherty was, Doherty's had 21 and kicked the first goal of the game, which was great. Was he playing on Goulden at times? Only had 297 metres gained. I didn't like his game. For some reason, I didn't like Doherty's game. I just felt he didn't look right. He didn't look right to me. Being at the ground, I watched him at times closely and I felt like he drifted out of the game and he didn't have a lot of impact. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, given he had 21 disposals in a game which was really tight. So he's had some big moments, but it wasn't the doc that we know. That's my impression anyway. Kemp had some good moments. And some moments where he was beaten one-on-one, but he took some nice grabs. Really good learning experience for him to play in a final and get that one under his belt. I think it was an okay performance. I think he had McDonald at times, and McDonald was hardly sighted. I remember saying to my brother, I said, this Logan McDonald has not touched the ball in the first half. So whoever's got the job on here, and it was a combination of probably McGovern and Kemp and Wiedering at times was sort of rotating through those bigs. But they did such a good job, but they eventually started to win some ball and started to look a little bit dangerous, those talls. And McDonald, he started to look really dangerous after half time. Walsh was big with his run. 28 touches, 6 tackles, had a really good game. Really needed that from him in this game, and he provided that. Martin was just popped up at the right times, whether it was with his couple of goals, big goal in the third quarter, won a free kick in the second, kicked straight, and then went back late in the game. Wonder if that was him taking it upon himself to go back and take those intercept grabs, or did someone send him back? Because if it was him, that's great leadership. I think players have the ability to make those decisions themselves. But look, we're gonna miss him. We're gonna fucking miss Jack Martin. I don't care what anyone says. That's a huge out for us, and a really, I feel a really undisciplined act. I really do. Because I really like him and really like what he's done in the second half of this season. But that hurts us. It really does. I think we really need him in our front half. We really do. And that to go out in that fashion with a really silly sort of swinging arm, we'll see that one pans out. But if I'm the coach of that, I'd be fucking spewing. Marchbank, I loved his game. Thought he showed a lot of courage. Thought when they got on top early in the game, he was the one that stood up across half back, and as the game progressed, I thought he just got better and better and better, and a good inclusion. I thought it was a good inclusion considering they did have those 3 tools that were always going to loom dangerous. Wiedering, solid. Took some grabs and was just steady in the back half. Newman, the same. I think he had Papley. Different smalls at different times. It wasn't like, I think he put the clamps on Isaac Heaney too. Heaney looked like he was the one early in the game that was going to get away and cause us the most headaches, but we really put the clamps on him, whether that was Newman, who had that job, or at times Chincotta. I thought early it may have been Heaney on top of Chincotta. But fuck, it's nearly impossible to get a read on who's playing on who because they're just swapping and changing all the time. Pitnet, I thought, was one of the better games I've seen him play. I really liked his aggression at the centre square. We know his limitation is he's 14 touches, but only 33 metres gained. So a lot of those were just little toe pokes here or there. But he just paved the way. Whether that's going to be good enough against Max Gawn, we're just going to have to wait and see. We really are, because Tom Hickey was on his last legs. Cunningham, important goal at an important time just before the main break with a nice goal. Didn't do a lot. I reckon 9 touches is not enough output. Spoke about these guys before the game, that we need just a little bit more from them. But it's a serviceable output in the final. I just don't think it's enough. Hewitt, serviceable, 25 touches, hard in and under, 5 tackles. Curnow, could hardly get near it. Could hardly get near it in the front half. But it's a testament to him that he can lift when things aren't going his way. And he's had the better of McCartan a number of times in his career. And then to be able to provide that outlet down the line in the second half and take some really strong marks at important times was so important. But at the same time, I felt like being at the ground, his body language at times wasn't great when things weren't going his way. I don't know if he looked frustrated or just a little bit down, or we know he's not going to provide a lot of defensive pressure, but yeah, makes it an interesting one this week because he's just kicked the one goal from a snap. And we're all saying that Charlie was going to be the big performer in the big games, and he's had a quietish one. So it's going to be a big one for him against Melbourne on Friday night. Chincotta, some nice moments, not overly sold at the moment. Don't think he's in great form, although I didn't think their smalls were electric. It wasn't like any of them sort of tore us to pieces. So, yeah, I think it was a solid without being spectacular. Saad was great. Great game by Adam Saad. Just noticed him all night. Noticed him with the long sleeves on after half time. And late in the game, he was just so safe. I think he's one of the most safest players in the competition when it's one-on-one against his direct opponent, particularly when the ball then hits the ground. His ability to bounce and then sort of respond is as good as anyone in the competition. Didn't like Matthew Owi's game. Didn't like what he was trying to do with that ball. And I know it was a bit of a brain fade and stuff, but I know he had 5 tackles. I just didn't see him. For the whole night. I just thought, fuck, come on, mate. Where are you? Give us something. And I love Matthew Cottrell's game. I saw this before. 17.6 kilometres he's run. The thing with Matthew Cottrell is he's a good footballer. He's actually a good footballer. He's got neat skills on both sides of the body. And he's a goal scorer. He knows how to hit the scoreboard. He was playing a combination of forward and wing and getting up the ground and taking marks into defence and running down players through the middle of the ground. And 2 goals were quality. The second was a beauty. He sort of weaved out of traffic and kicked the ball on his left foot. He was a fine performer. And people say, he stepped up in this final and, Matthew Cottrell is a real surprise packet, but he's been bloody good for a while now, Matthew Cottrell. And he's got sort of big game traits because it feels like he loves what he does. Doesn't feel like he lets an occasion. Well, I don't know him. I don't know him from a bar of soap, but just watching him, it looks like he doesn't let things sort of get to him. And just sort of goes or has a crack and goes for it. But I actually think he's a reasonable footballer. And I think we've nailed that part of the ground, the wings and that sort of defensive forward who can be damaging with Cottrell's impact in that game. Anyway, guys, that's a wrap. I'll be back on Wednesday to preview our semi-final clash against Melbourne. Tell me what you think about the boys' performance. Were you happy with it? Where do we need to lift if we're going to beat Melbourne, which is going to be a big ask? And then obviously after that, it's probably the biggest hurdle in football at the moment is to go to Queensland and the Gabba to take on the Brisbane Lions. But we've got to get past Melbourne first. Speak soon.